Now, Mohammed, the Middle East peace deal, of course, is talked about a lot around the world and here in the Middle East. Many people say, wake me up when something's going to happen. You believe that there is something very soon on the horizon?
Absolutely. I think there is something being cooked right now in the Middle East, but the place that it's being cooked at is not Jerusalem or Ramallah, it's in Riyadh, where the new crown prince is asserting his authority on the country politically and economically. But let's focus a little bit on the peace process. Last week, the son-in-law of President Donald Trump and his special envoy to the Middle East was in Riyadh. He met with the king, he met with the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and they talked about the peace process. I do believe that the U.S. is about to roll out its vision of how to revive the stalled peace process that has been frozen in time for the last 3+ years. And the U.S. has some ideas in mind, and it wants to include the moderate Arab countries, the Sunni bloc, led by the Saudi monarchy, to be the one this time trying to bridge the gap between the Palestinians and Israelis. Here, we're talking about a regional resolution, so to speak, a regional peace process that will include Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. We already have a peace agreement between Israel and Egypt, Israel and Jordan, but this time it will include the Sunni bloc. What's in common with the Sunni bloc and Israel? Common threat. That is Iran.
Right, but we also know that now with this 10-year rift between Hamas and Fatah, perhaps it could be putting a hurdle in the middle of this ultimate deal that how Trump has coined it. What do you say to that?
Maybe and maybe not, and that's why we haven't seen this strong rejection to the reconciliation talks. I do believe that Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who has been brokering this deal, most likely he has exerted enough pressure on Hamas to accept this reconciliation deal. He has given assurances, I do believe, to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as to U.S. President Donald Trump, that Hamas is better contained than fighting it, where it will maybe get closer to Iran. And now we're talking about Iran. This is the main issue once again. Iran is the common enemy to the Sunni bloc in the Arab world, as well as Israel. And all these countries put together, they want to focus on one thing: the continuation of expanding influence of Iran in the region. We see that Iran's influence has grown tremendously in Syria, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Bahrain, and in Yemen. Everyone is worried about it. They are so close to the Israeli borders in Syria as well as in Lebanon, and that's why maybe the U.S. wants to unite all these countries that sees Iran as the common enemy and have them focus. But before they deal with Iran, they have to deal with the more contentious issue. That is the Palestinian-Israeli conflict.
Absolutely, and Middle East peace is something that many people don't believe we'll see in our lifetime. We'll have to see what the United States vision is for that, if in fact it is to come out in the next few weeks. Now, we know that on Saturday, Lebanese Prime Minister Hariri resigned, but what's led up to this that's grabbed your attention?
This is a resignation that sent shockwaves throughout the region. We have seen, now that we're looking at it, we've seen a number of activities, a number of steps that took place a week before this sudden resignation took place, that makes us think that all roads lead to Riyadh. Let's have a look.
أعلن استقالتي من رئاسة الحكومة اللبنانية.
أن الاستقالة كانت قراراً سعودياً
Tracy, this sudden resignation is definitely going to throw Lebanon or plunge Lebanon into uncertainty. That is political uncertainty. But it definitely comes with the heightened tension between Riyadh and Tehran. We have seen a number of aggressive statements made by high-ranking Saudi officials, even the Crown Prince himself, against Iran. And now Saudi Arabia is probably wanting to make sure that Hezbollah, who is a strong ally of Iran, and Iran itself, and all those who are allied themselves with Iran in Yemen and elsewhere, are either staying aside and taking a neutral stand, or they will face some sort of punishment by Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia must have gotten maybe the green light from Washington that it's okay to raise the tension. And we've heard in the last few weeks of maybe a secret visit by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia to Israel, or some high-ranking Saudi official. And I do believe that there is some sort of a unified planning supported and backed by Washington, by the U.S., between Israel and Saudi Arabia to counter Iran in the region. That's why, with everything that is happening, I will not be surprised to see a direct, open confrontation between Saudi Arabia and some other elements, maybe Israel, and Iran anytime soon. And that's why in a speech yesterday by Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah, he was not as fiery as he normally is when he gives a speech. He was rather calm, and he tried to calm the Lebanese people, saying that Saudi Arabia has cannot on its own fight and start a war with Lebanon. It has to come from someone else. So we'll have to wait and see. But all statements that we're getting right now from Saudi Arabia and the region points towards some sort of confrontation, maybe military confrontation between Saudi Arabia and Iran.
All right, but there's been a lot of tension inside of Saudi Arabia this week. What has slipped under the radar here?
Well, we've seen that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman arrest a number of high-ranking, not only officials, but also princes. We're talking about Al-Walid bin Talal, who is one of the richest people in the world, and also the minister of the Saudi National Guard. This is a very powerful armed group in Saudi Arabia. He's trying to assert his control over Saudi Arabia, not only economically with his vision of 2030 and vision of trying to find ways to help the stalled Saudi economy, but also he wants to gain the support of the young Saudis. But this is a huge signal that there is tremendous pressure on him, and that the monarchy is not really unified, and that's why a number of arrests has been made in the last few days.
And what do you think the fallout of this is going to be?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If we have seen some dismay within the monarchy, and if he does not arrest all those who oppose him, it may actually backlash, and it may signal the end of him. At this point, he seems to be able to arrest all those who oppose him. Right now, he wants to make sure that he has his own, he has tightened his grip on power, and he has his own agenda being implemented without any opposition. The fallout, we may see more conflicts in the region, as we've seen his aggressive stance on Iran, but also this may throw the international market and the economy of Saudi Arabia in disarray.
Well, you're keeping your eye on that story for us, Mohammed Al-Qasem. Thank you so much for that insight.